Welcome to Integrity Data's Payroll Functions tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to go over closing our pay period and exporting our payroll. From your dashboard, you'll go to Payroll Functions and Close Pay Period. Now, whether you do this before you export your payroll or after is up to you. Your pay period should be closed regularly and not like you see here where I've got a bunch of these open. One of the things that can determine whether you want to close this before your export or after, or let it go for one or two pay periods, depends on your accruals. If you're using advanced time and attendance to accrue your PTO, sick, vacation, and things like that, then that will determine how soon you need to close these up. If your accruals are based on the year and at the first of the year or whenever employee reaches their anniversary of their hire date, or even if it's monthly, then we're not concerned with closing these up quickly. But if your employee accrue time based on the number of hours they work in a pay period, or they get X amount of time off per pay period, that's the point at where these need to be closed, because it will not calculate their accrual until you close the pay period. Closing the pay period tells the software that this is a done deal and I'm ready to move on with other things. Now, a warning of caution, once you do close the pay period, you cannot go back and open it. So closing the pay period is going to factor that in. Do you want to wait a couple of days to make sure everything's gone through, there's no issues, you don't need to go back in and change anything in an employee's timesheet? That's going to determine whether or not you close it straight away or how much time you're going to let pass before you do come and close this. If you're not using accruals, or if those accruals are just yearly, monthly, then you've got more time basically to allow a couple, two or three, to stay open before you close them. So if you leave a couple open, you can always go back in and make changes. If an employee comes up and says, hey, this wasn't right, you can change it in payroll, come back, unapprove the employee, change it, and that way both systems will match. Once you close this pay period, and we'll close March 20th to April 2nd of 2022. Close. Are you sure you want to close? Please note this action cannot be undone without contacting support. We click OK. It disappears from here. It's done. It's closed. It's a snapshot in time, a picture of what happened during that particular time. You will still be able to see that pay period under the employee's time management. You will still be able to run reports under that pay period, but you will not be able to edit or modify anything in that pay period. So if you choose to leave one or two open, then each week that you come in to do payroll, your first stop should be here, and it should be to close the oldest one. That way it's done, it's out of the way, you don't have to remember it later. The next step is going to be exporting your payroll. And for that, we're still in the payroll functions, exports, run export. That brings us to this. You may have one or more exports in your setup, but you need to use the one specific to your payroll. And you'll be trained on this, so you should know which one that is. Now, we can utilize our exports here for different types of exports too. We can create labor exports, hours exports, things like that that we may need to run, that maybe we always want to come out in a CSV. It gives us an opportunity to build what fields we want within that export, so that when we open it, the data that we need is right there. It also allows creating those same CSVs or delimited or tabbed text files should you need to import various items into some of your other software. But for now, we're just going to concentrate on the payroll. I click this down and I choose my payroll export. Pay period state. We just went over closed pay periods and open pay periods, but there's two types of open pay periods. There's a pending and there's an active. Active is the current pay period that you're in right now. Today is the 14th, so whichever pay period encompasses the 14th, that's going to be active. This is very rarely used when exporting payroll. Someone that might use this is if Monday's a holiday and they need to export on a Friday, but Saturday's hours haven't been entered yet. They may go in and add transactions for Saturday based on what they typically work, and then export the active pay period so they can get that in and checks get delivered as they need to be. Again, it's very rare that that needs to be done. If you choose to close your pay period before you run your export, then you would select closed. Otherwise, you're always going to be going into pending. And if you've got more than one pay period, you'll need to make sure that you choose the correct one for the employees that you are exporting. So I'm just going to use my biweekly and then click Run Export. Once I click Run Export, it's either going to save to where my browser has designated all files get saved to, or it's going to pop up and ask me where I want to save it. And that depends on the settings in your browser itself. Once you've exported the file, you would then go to your payroll and run through the import procedures to import the hours for that. That concludes our payroll functions tutorial. Thank you for watching.